up where I did, and I knew all the trouble I had relating to people. My husband was from the suburbs and went to the good high school and lived in the nice part of town. I thought his family was like the Waltons. Anybody remembers that? Thinking it can't even be true that there's actually a mom and a dad that function like this. And it was true. It is true. So it may not be that they, in perspective taking, if that were me, because some of the situations that you're serving, you don't probably have donors that have had a very similar experience. Now, they may have people in their family or something else, but the Lord helps us to understand. And when Jesus is talking on that list of the oppressed and the prisoner and all, he wanted all of us to embrace all of his kingdom work. It may not be that I have a brother in prison or something like that. So those were the things that they studied and found that were very, very real, that we have a control over in how we tell a testimonial from someone. To just shape it a little bit more closely. We have the elements contained in it, but just to understand that's what's happening in the brain. And that may be the difference between a $50 gift and a $200 gift. Now, that same study of the 16,000 donors, she said, she had several statistics in there, Penelope Cruz. She had one that was, not Cruz, Penelope Burke. She had one in there that talked about the leap that some donors make from $250 to 5 figures. And it may not be over a protected period of time. Sometimes it was in 2 to 3 months only. And the $250 was not a function of capacity. It was just getting to know the organization, which is why when we talk about when you have a new donor and you welcome them and you help make yourself available to answer questions, you thank them authentically and all at the beginning of the relationship. Some of those will raise their hand for a larger gift pretty soon as they start to develop a bond of trust with you. And so that's a lot of, it's not giving or not giving as much as here's how people can self-identify. So we don't have to guilt them into giving more or cajole them. We have to give them opportunity and give them stories that really compel them and tap into that image of God on compassion and grace that God has wired in us like him. So I'll tell you a story here, true story. Long time ago though, well, I think 2015 or 2016, but I don't have to call it a ship or a boat. It's bigger than a boat, smaller than a ship, and I'm not a naval person to know really what I should say. I'll call it a ship. But it was ostensibly from Indonesia, but it wasn't registered legally with Indonesia. Now they weren't, it wasn't anything bad, but they were just moving goods from the Philippines and came under attack from pirates, like real life pirates. And so they looted all the stuff and set the ship on fire, or boat. And the guys perished except for 11, and I think even the captain perished. Somebody came and rescued the 11. But what happened in rescuing him is that the captain's dog, named, I don't know how to say it, Hosget, something, Hotget. Anyway, it's probably Indonesian, something. Anyway, a little terrier did not get rescued. Well, as it came to light over a short period of time after that there was still a life form on board, they figured out it was the captain's dog. Well, that ship now was burnt all out, was physically unstable and drifting, and it came within 250 miles of Hawaii. And at that point, somebody, I think I don't know that it was the Coast Guard, somebody found out or determined that, in fact, there was a dog on board. Well, the people in the media heard that. And there's a dog stranded at sea, called it the lost dog at sea, on this floating, burnt-out ship. It's going to die, it's going to die. Well, people started calling up the Honolulu Humane Society to ask if they could give a donation. Can somebody go rescue this dog? Well, the Humane Society called the Coast Guard, and the U.S. Coast Guard said, thankfully, we can't use taxpayer money to go rescue a dog. It's not an American ship, right answer. And so we're sorry about it. And then some private guy, they paid donations came into the Humane Society, and they said, well, we'll give the money if somebody wants to try to do something. Well, some private party took $48,000. It was all good, all above board, but couldn't get it done. Couldn't get out there, couldn't find the right place, couldn't get to the dog, and all of that. So, but money still kept coming in, and the story wouldn't go away. It's on the media, on the media, on the media. It won't go away. Pretty soon there's over $200,000 coming in because people want to rescue this dog, right? Well, long story short, there was a way then to cover Coast Guard costs to be able to do it. So it didn't come from taxpayer money, so that the Coast Guard could go do it. And semi-legitimately, they also wanted to make sure there was nothing on board that was going to leak, that was coming closer to Hawaii shore, that was going to leak and contaminate and kill wildlife and all of that, because they didn't know all what was under there. So they wanted to verify that as well. So they get out there. Well, now, so it happened, now it's going on 7 weeks with all of this happening before they get out to that dog. Well, the dog is hiding downstairs in a bunch of tires. Why there's tires on a ship, I don't know. And when they go to rescue it, the dog is, scared to death. So they have to try to figure out how to do it. Well, they successfully rescue the dog. He's still alive, and seemingly he's still alive. And they get him back. It's a huge, happy story. Come into the shore. Honolulu Humane Society. Anybody who one donor gave $5,000 to say, this just gives me hope that there are good people in the world, that other people besides me are putting money together to go rescue this dog. And it's like, where does that come from? God built that into people. And so, not that I'm justifying the situation, but that's where that spontaneous generosity comes from. So they get this dog, Holtzget, whatever the dog's name is, and a family in Honolulu adopts him. He gets weight put on him. He's healthy. He has to go to dog classes because he doesn't speak English and doesn't mind very well. And it's a happy story, and he lived several years after this. I don't know, maybe still be alive. But what happened is backlash, and you might have this in your mind. I don't think I thought of it, but when I read about it, I thought, well, that makes sense. People saying, in fact, this was the example, do you know how many people on the street struggling with homelessness that I could help with $248,000, and you saved one dog? And so people then, so the social media war going back and forth is like, well, let's do both. They're not mutually exclusive. Why don't we do this and that and everything else that needs to be done? So that went on for quite a while. So that's a true story, and there's a point to it. This is my dog, River. She's a rascal. She's a Brittany. But the one thing that we learn thinking through this story afterwards is back to what motivates donors to give in the human brain. And there have been a lot of studies, and I made this mistake. I was working in donor engagement with the mission that we were missionaries with when a huge earthquake happened in Pakistan. You probably don't remember it, and I don't think I could even tell you the year now, if it's 2001 or 2 or 3, 2000-something. 78,000 people died in 6 minutes in a mountainous area up in the northern part of Pakistan when whole cliffs, whole sides of mountains fell right off. Villages, livestock, schools, families, everything just went crashing over the edge. And our mission ran the only hospital in that area, and that's where all the triage happened. So I'm suddenly raising money for all of this, and all the other hospitals crashed. Ours was standing because we did it by American building codes. I shouldn't say that. And so it was reinforced concrete and stayed up in the earthquake. But anyway, I made the mistake. So money came in, and about a month later I said, there's lots more that we're doing. They were doing evangelism, discipleship. They were trying to help with the schools. It happened in October the 7th or 8th. In November now, it's freezing cold up there in the mountains. These people are under tarps with snow coming down, and they're going to freeze to death, kids. And so we're trying to get blankets airlifted in. Samaritan's Purse did a whole bunch of stuff. They brought their 747 full of stuff, and it was our missionaries that distributed it. Anyway, all that to say, I kept saying to donors, 78,000 people died in 6 minutes. It was tragic. And that was the opposite, that was the worst thing to say, because when I would say that, the money would stop. Because, and this is what before, and like I said, I was self-taught in donor engagement, the human brain can't deal with math like that. And the way God, so you look at Jesus, he tells us the story of the woman suffering with the issue of blood. He tells us about the guy whose daughter's dying, and just say the word and I know she'll be healed. And he gives us all these glimpses of individuals who are suffering. He does say lots of times, you know, he looked out into the multitudes and had compassion on them. But when I read that verse, that doesn't do anything for me. I'm glad he had compassion on them, but that doesn't move my heart. But I read all the individual encounters, and I'm thinking, oh, Jesus, you're amazing. You're just, and that's because we can't deal with the large masses. I can tell you how many million kids will die of malaria this year, and it'll affect us all the same way. It's like, wow, that's really too bad. But if it's 20,000, 200,000, 2 million, 200 million, it matters the difference, but it doesn't do anything for charitable giving, the difference. In fact, there's more studies on that, and I won't be able to let us out early if I give you all the research projects, but one of them was on exactly that. They asked research participants, would you give to help 10,000 people be saved from a disease that 20,000 people were exposed to? Or would you give to help 20,000 people be saved from a disease 100,000 people were exposed to? And even though this one saves 20,000 people and this one saves 10,000 people, they picked 10,000 because it was half of everybody exposed. And this one is 20% of everybody exposed, and they didn't give to it as much. I don't understand it, but it proves out every time. And so the whole point of this story, happy for dogs, not happy for dogs, happy that people are crazy, not happy that people are crazy, is we do give statistics on number of meals, and it's always in the tens of thousands, and the shelter nights, and the this. That matters, and I know we don't necessarily do a lot with grants, even private grants, but grantors love the numbers. But donors, that doesn't help them very much. And when your little wheel goes up and it goes from 11,000 to 12,000 to 13,000, that's not bad, and I am certainly not saying to not do that. But that's not your main thing that's going to motivate your people. It's going to be what you're doing, and I know we have privacy issues, but within reason, even with stock photos, the face of the person being helped. Or if for privacy reasons, maybe it's the back of the head of somebody, but you can tell that somebody's praying with them or something. Because we can relate to that, we can understand that. I don't know why, but that seems to be true.
We might have the same way. Is it the picture of the happy child or the picture of the sad child that gets the more money? It's a little bit of a blatant,
yes. It depends. Good answer, it depends. But it does depend. Depends on what industry you're in. So if you're St. Jude's Hospital and you've got kids with cancer, you want the happy face because they didn't die. And everybody knows that they could. They lost all their hair. You can tell they're yellow colored on their skin. There may be some sadness in their eyes, but you watch them. They don't have kids crying. They have the mothers crying. But they mostly have the kids like, they're helping me and I'm going to go play with my dog one of these days. So it depends. Here's what we recommend. So we don't ever say sad, sad, because we want to make sure that we portray people as with dignity. But the serious picture is what we would point to in inviting people to say your gift will do this. Although some of your communication doesn't have any pictures, granted. But the more serious picture is when you're saying to them, there's this opportunity or need here, and here's what our mission is doing to help that need. And it's people like Kevin. And then the smiley face is we recommend you turn your newsletters into more of an impact report, not a newsletter. And that's where you either revisit a story that you told in an appeal and tell what happened later that was good, or just give some positive testimonials. That's where you have the smiling faces. we helped her get her GED, and now she's applying for a job, and we helped this, and we helped this, and we helped this. And then it gives both the seriousness more when you're telling them the need, and the happy face when God is at work. And donors aren't stupid. They know it's not all success stories. They know there's recidivism. But even just the naming the steps that are happy that happen after that with some positive faces. Yeah. Was your question different?
I was just quickly about your example with the dog. You'll see that in today's economy with GoFundMe, and there might be one just specific situation where they just raised the tune of money, and not that it might not be a worthy cause, but it just doesn't seem like you have.
Right. It's out of proportion. Yeah.
And then one last one. I'll just use the state of Iowa, for example. In the 2022 election, in the senator's race, there was in excess of $150 million spent for one Senate race. And granted, I'm not trying to turn this into a political.
Right. But $150 million for one.
One race in the country.
Yeah.
My goodness, think about how that money could have been utilized. One race, one Senate race in the country. You're thinking, people.
Well, and that, to your point, agree with that. As we're all pushing, so with the churches we attend, the work that we do, everything we can, trying to help people hear the gospel and turn to the Lord and repent. And as people do that, He redeems their pocketbook, and then they give to things much more important than that, kingdom work. In the meantime, people made in the image of God who don't have a relationship with God, they're going to give to charitable causes that are less than spiritual, because He still made them that way. They're still in His image. They just don't have the spiritual renewal to evaluate what's better than that to give to. So they're going to give to, I won't spend any time on that, but it pained me to hear a successful case study from Planned Parenthood saying, here's some donor tips that you can do on something that we did that was really successful. Well, it was sound principles, but it just pained me that the example was from Planned Parenthood. It's like, I can't bear it. So this is, again, the gracious, compassionate God, slow to anger, abounding in love, and abounding in faithfulness. So we're looking to show humility and partnership with donors. We show authentic respect of the program participants. We use participants' voices as storytelling, and that all is consistent with being made in the image of God. I don't think we need to spend time on this. This is really just what I referred to briefly, and that is, here's the questions, and you don't list them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But if you, in your storytelling or your copy, whether it's print, whether it's digital, it could be a talking point over a cup of coffee, it could be part of an event up from the front. If you lead the people listening through this sequence, what's the problem? Well, we've got men and women and children on the streets. It's how you explain what the issue is. What is your organization doing to solve the problem? By God's grace, the door is always open for a hot meal, a shower, and a safe place to sleep for the night. And we're inviting people then to participate in discipleship programs where they're going to really experience the life change that will give them a future. How much will it cost? This is sometimes the hardest question. You can talk about a month's worth of services, and that's I have no idea, $34,000 for this, and that often helps this many people. Or you can say, right now we're having an initiative to doing this, it's this amount. So you can take legitimate chunks of your program and talk about the cost, and then you can often get to your $50 gift will do this, or your $100 gift will do that. It doesn't have to always be the same thing from your budget, but it needs to be real, because as the Chief Development Officer, my staff would get a call from a donor saying, where did those numbers come from? And I would say it came from here and here and here. And so, and which is why I don't put in 50,000, 60,000, 10,000. It's too round and tidy of a number that they know you just made it up. And if if it's from your budget, it's probably $9,782.13. That's fine to put it like that. And then how will the donor's gift make an impact? So you need $34,000 for 3 months for something. And then I'm thinking, well, if inflation's high and things are tight, I give to my church, but I got a tax refund, and so I'm going to tie them a tax refund. So I have a chunk of money that's extra to my church giving that I could give to you for this. But I'm thinking, okay, if I'm going to give from that, how is my gift going to help then? So that's when you say the cost and you say that to do X, Y, Z, and then you say, so your gift today of $50 or whatever, 25, 50, 75, whatever, will do this, and it's some smaller portion of that. So then I can envision that. We always say, don't make the donor do all the work. Don't make them try to have to figure everything out. Again, with a letter, you got 11 seconds, an email, 6 seconds, a post, maybe 4 seconds. You want it to be immediately engaging and self-explanatory. So let them just glide through it. And then why should the donor give now? Because as soon as we have this, we can help this many more people, or we can complete this. And if you've given a snippet of a story of Kevin and the issue, then you can say, so that we can help so many more just like Kevin. Because it's not restricted or designated funding. It's not for the Kevin, it's for that kind of program. So in your communication flow, yep.
I just got to say real quick, what's interesting at the youth part, we found, of course, there are real-time videos go up with need in the show, but we've also seen thank you videos that have been incredibly effective when they're in scenarios where there is a situation, like when there's bad weather. One of my favorite ones is Reverend Lehman, standing outside, hey, it's freezing cold out here, the wind is blowing, but thanks to you, everybody's inside and safe. No ask at all.
Oh, I love it.
But he's showing these donors that, and thousands of dollars poured in.
Yeah.
And it's just fascinating how we can tie that, if we really focus on those 5 things we talked about, and bring that even in a thanking scenario, not just in a dire need scenario. We need help or else this is going to happen.
Yes.
We needed help. You did this, and now this is what's happening. Thank you. And people feel motivated by that, and they respond.
I think that's so true, because you can't have the wheels falling off all the time. Go ahead.
Another one of Jeff's for exhibition in Florida, their air conditioning unit had gone out, and the CEO was out there 45 seconds just, thanking, it was a meter thanking, but it's the same concept. It was hot, and boom, the air conditioning needed to be fixed, and it got fixed.
And when you live in that neighborhood, you're like, oh man, if mine, that's the perspective taking. If my air conditioning went out, I wouldn't make it. I would not even sleep at night. And so that's the same thing. So that leads right into this. It's a rhythm of 3 things. A compelling message, inviting them to give, authentic gratitude in a timely manner, and evidence of impact, and that repeats. And that same study of the 16,000 donors, some of the donors said, I made the decision to make my next gift when I got the thank you. And they didn't give it in that moment with the thank you because they weren't being asked at that point. And that particular thank you didn't have a reply device, but that's why you have to be careful because it's a thank you. And so you might not want to include a reply device, but you might want to include a courtesy envelope because nobody's offended with that because you're saying, well, they just don't want me to have to go find an envelope, figure out, look up online what the mailing address is, go see if I've got a stamp. And if they're not going to make a gift, they just discard the envelope. But some people will decide to give right then because of the authentic thank you. And so make it easy for them. Just think of the donor, make it convenient. And if you're taking the high road and you're not hand-wringing and sounding guilty and blaming and whatever else, they look forward to seeing your stuff and then they respond well. So that's the rhythm of it, and it's exactly because they're making a decision to make the next gift when they get their thank you. So that's a good word. Custom personalized. There's just lots of places that you put messaging out. It needs to be coordinated and integrated so it sounds like all the same organization. You want it to be donor focused and not sound like give to the mission so that we can help the people. You want to say your gift helps the people. You're not giving to our programs. You're not giving to us. You're giving to Kevin, to help Kevin. They have to see that their gift matters, because people do not give to bricks and mortar. They do not give to keep the lights on. They might be sorry if you have to lay off staff, but they're not going to give to keep staff. They're going to give to help Kevin. And Kevin's over here, and you're down below. And so we were sitting in the lobby, a colleague of mine of an organization that asked us to do a proposal, and just sitting in the lobby, we grabbed one of the newsletters off the table, waiting for our appointment. My colleague circled 34 times in the first 2 pages of the newsletter that said, "We or our," instead of "you or your." Now, you have to have some "we or our" because you're talking about programs. But who's reading it? It sounds like your bragging sheet about yourself, like you wrote your own resume and put it out. You want to read how good I am and what good work I'm doing. That's not showing impact to the donor. It's bragging. I don't know. Maybe that's wrong. Maybe that's. I'll walk that one back. You need to let them know their money is being spent credibly, but you want them to understand that your gift is the one that's making these things happen. I often will say to people, if you didn't get any more donor money, how long would you go? Well, you run till your reserves go out. That's probably several months. But so where are you going to get money after that, next year, the year after? Well, we probably won't. Well, then maybe don't take your donors so much for granted. If you can't run this 5 years from now without donors, talk to them like they matter, like they have a seat at the table. Now I'm preaching. Okay. You know this part. Donors who give 3 or more years give more, and they give longer, and the retention is higher, and there's somehow a jump between the 2nd year and the 3rd year. So all your new donors, you're working to get them into the 3rd year of repeat giving. And there's algorithms and all that go with that. So anyway, you want your donors you want this mom to say to the kids, I guess I won't tell any more stories. I was going to tell one about a 9-year-old donor girl. But anyway, I can't let you out early if I keep telling stories. So any other questions?
How do you feel about an ask within a banking, like a return receipt kind of? Is that industry standard? I mean, what's your?
So the question is an ask in
In a thank
receipt or in a thank you?
In the thank you. In the thank you note, there's, an envelope and a little section you can fill out. Just curious what your take is.
There's a good way to do some things on good principles and a bad way to wrongly apply the same principle or to not apply it correctly. So the answer depends on how it's applied. So for example, consumerism in retail spends billions, I don't know how much they spend, hundreds of millions of dollars on customer research. And we borrow that for donor research because the same person is giving to both. So when we do we have a very robust data analysis. We have a PhD data scientist on our team, and when we're looking at acquisition lists for who might start giving to you the first time who hasn't given, we take data points like they buy their clothes at Eddie Bauer, or they own a cat, or this or that, because that all of those, hundreds of them, plus they make charitable donations to Christian ministries and they attend church. All of that together gives you a much higher caliber donor, prospective donor, to be more likely to get your money back on your acquisition, because acquisition costs as an investment. So because people are holistic, that isn't unimportant. So we watch what they tell us from consumer spending, even though that's not the be-all, end-all for donating. And what they say is people are most excited to buy their next pair of shoes from you when they just bought their pair of shoes. And if you notice in your own shopping, as soon as you click and they say, "Thank you, we received your order," and then they have their little deal like our welcome series they have, they send you a coupon for 15% off your next order. And I just ordered 5 minutes ago, and they just sent me 15% off my next order. If I'm excited about that, thought, oh man, I like that other pair, but I couldn't justify both. But with 15% off and free shipping, maybe I could get that other pair. I just might. And they do that because it works. So thank people authentically. And don't make it a backhanded way to get another gift. But whatever made them excited to give to you right then, that excitement is still there. So so make the thank you a thank you. If you include on their gift acknowledgement something they can tear off and send back with an envelope, but that's not asking, you're not making it a plea on there in words. They might say, you know what, I gave 25, and you know what, I talked to my husband after that, we probably could have given 50 or we could have given 40. They might just, and they probably won't use that envelope. They'll probably go online and do it. But they won't go online and do it without the envelope, without seeing the envelope. Yeah. And then they might figure, you know what, I'll just throw in that other $15. So they might not give another 25, but if they feel like, you know what, I gave 25, and then I told the story to my kids, and she's like, so what do we do? I said, well, we gave our pizza money to that. She's like, well, why didn't you give the movie money too? And it's like, well, I could have given a little more. They might just decide to go right then and give another little bit to top it off because it takes 30 seconds, and now they did it once successfully. It doesn't seem as hard technologically the second time because I've done it once. But at that point, I'm not feeling hijacked or pressured or backhanded like you're just trying to bleed me dry because I'm excited. So if I'm authentically thanked and you give me something for convenience, if I'm like, I just gave to you, I'm not going to buy a second pair of shoes right now. I don't mind discarding the envelope when I keep my receipt. I'm not offended. Yeah. And I would be, in the gift acknowledgement, if you can change the fields of what that says from what your donor processing defaults are, please don't say general fund and other things. You can have an upbeat thank you kind of thing in the acknowledgement that they use for tax purposes so they know their money went to the right place. Even changing 3 or 4 of those words might prompt somebody to give again without seeming heavy-handed like you're asking. You know, pay attention, because that's free. That's free postage. I mean, it's going with the gift acknowledgement. And if it prompts another gift, that was a free appeal. And so anything, time you can tweak a nuance for 3 or 4 or 5 words here or there, it's worth doing. Any other questions? And everybody take a break before dinner. Thank you for coming.